All right, this is Daniel Steinberg, host of the Maggid Method podcast, coming at you with another episode of the Maggid Method. And in this episode, I wanted to revisit a theme that I spoke about in one of the previous episodes, which is the Maggid Method, the idea of reverse engineering your drasha, your shiur, your divrei chizuk, inspiring messages, or really any transformative presentation that you want to give to an assembled audience. And it comes from the story about the Maggid of Dubno. Someone had once asked him, they said, how is it possible that you are able to come up with the precise story, the perfect mashal, to fit every one of your Torah messages? Every single time. It's like magic. How do you do it? And he said, I'll answer you with a mashal. And he proceeded to tell the story of an archer who was walking through the forest one day, and he stumbled upon a tree. And on the tree was a target, bright yellow target with a bullseye painted red in the center. And in the middle of the bullseye were sticking out dozens of arrows crowded around the center. And he's like, I don't even understand how something like this is possible. How do you do this? How do you hit the target every single time? And while he's trying to figure it out, this little kid jumps out from behind the tree and he goes, hey, it was me. You like what I did? And the archer's like, you got to explain this to me. How is this possible? I've been doing this all my life, and I don't even have the precision that you have. How is it possible to hit the target every single time? And he said, it's the easiest thing in the world. First, I shoot the arrows into the tree, and then I draw the bullseye around the arrows. And the Maggid of Dubno said, I do the same thing. I don't have a Torah message and start looking for a story to illustrate that message. That's a fool's job. It could take you all week or all month to find the perfect, exact, precise story, anecdote, or metaphor to illustrate a unique Torah idea. I'm not doing that. I'm going to find the story first. I'll find the fascinating, the captivating, the engaging, the dramatic, the humorous, and I'll look for the Torah message within that story. And that's my magic. That's the secret sauce. And so that's really the essence of the Maggid Method. And I wanted to take a couple moments to, I guess, first explain what happens when you start adopting this method, how it transforms your life. And I've narrowed it down to two ways. There's two specific ways that you'll see yourself starting to go through life differently when you adopt the Maggid Method, as I have. Okay, the first one is that you become hypersensitive. It's like you develop this fine-tuned antenna, radar, that you're able to pick up stories and interesting things that happen that other people miss. You just, the stuff happens, the quirky, the bizarre, the interesting, the dramatic, the humorous, all these things that captivate and engage audiences and make you a very interesting person to listen to and pay attention to. That stuff happens to all of us, but most people miss it. Most people are just, they're not attuned to it. But when you realize that this is, as a speaker, as a teacher, as an educator, this is your oxygen. This is your fuel. This is what's going to keep people listening to you. This is what supports you. This is what gives you life. Then you develop this antenna, this radar, and you start seeing them everywhere. You see them happen to you. You see them happen to other people. If you hear something interesting, your antenna goes up. And it's really important to grab them while they're still fresh in your mind. Can't tell you how many times I've thought to myself, I'll write it down later. I'll remember it. And gosh darn it, if every single time, or at least 9 out of 10 times, I can't remember it afterwards. So right there on the spot, open plots, as you take it in, as you see it, hear it, curate it, write down a couple words to jog your memory for later. Grab it, because these are ephemeral. They'll slip out of your fingers. They appear like in an instant out of nowhere, and they disappear just as quickly. So if you're serious about this, you got to carry a pen with you, or voice notes on your phone, or tell somebody to remind you. But don't trust yourself. This is like pixie dust, this stuff. It's magical, and it disappears just as quickly. So that's number one. You become hyper attuned to interesting things. And it's a fun way to go through life, because you're always looking for that interesting, quirky, fascinating, captivating, engaging type of situation. And there's lots of it. Life is interesting. Life is dramatic. Life is humorous. Life is funny. Life is captivating. You just have to have your eyes and ears open. And this is the first way that the Maggid Method transforms how you proceed through life. The second way is it also prompts you to look for the transformative message in every scenario. So you're constantly learning through these interesting occurrences that happen to you. I think I gave the example of Rabbi Shannon Gelman, which is one of the best examples I've heard, where he was in an accident.
One time I got into a car accident. I was fine, but they had the protocol called for them pulling me out on the stretcher, stabilizing my neck. And the whole time I'm thinking, that's a drasha. This is not just an unfortunate situation. A drasha is happening to me right now.
That's what you do. You start to look through the world, maybe a lot like Shlomo HaMelech. There's a world of Mishlei. There's a world of parables. There's a world of things that are going on all around us to take transformative messages from. And so the second way that the Maggid Method transforms your life is you become a student of life. You start looking for what's transformative in every situation, every occurrence. Now, sometimes it's not immediately apparent. Sometimes there's something that is really, really interesting or really, really fascinating, but it's just not clear what the message is. Or maybe there's multiple messages. It's really good. Put it to the side. Keep it in your file. Keep it in your voice notes. Keep it in your journal and come back to it. You'll be surprised. Sometimes you'll come across the Dvar Torah, and that story that was just sitting on the shelf over there is perfect for the Dvar Torah to illustrate that point. So you don't have to force messages out of every story. That's not what I'm advocating. But what you should do is you should train yourself to start looking for the kernels of Torah within every interesting occurrence that happens around you, whether it happens to you directly or someone that you know or something that you hear. So those are the two ways that the Maggid Method that I found, at least for myself, kind of transforms the way that I progress through life. It makes me hyper attuned to interesting things. I collect them, I capture them. And the second way is that it trains me to start looking for the transformative Torah messages in every one of these. And it's not contrived, it's not manufactured. I mean, there are things happening to us all around that we're supposed to take in and learn from. If you look at Mishlei, that's exactly what Shlomo HaMelech was doing. He was looking around. He looked at the ant. He looked at this. He looked at that. Isn't that curious? Isn't this interesting? Isn't this, right? There must be some message here for me. Hashem is sending us messages. I think Rabbi Fran has a book called Listen to Your Messages, which is about picking up on what Hashem's trying to tell you through your environment. When you do this, you will find yourself in ample supply of interesting stories, funny jokes, dramatic things to engage your audience with. And at the same time, you'll be able to impart Torah, impart transformative messages as you perceive them. Okay, so that is the Maggid Method in the crux. And I wanted to give you an example. I gave a couple examples in the last episode, but I since then I came across an interesting story. And I don't know what the message is, but I think it's an amazing story. And it's one of those, here's an example where I'm going to shelve this story until I find a great message in it. And if you have a transformative message that this story speaks to you, by all means, grab it, use it, send me an email, drop me a line, tell me what you're going to do with the story, because I'm curious. I'd love to know what the nimshal is in this story. Okay, so I was listening to a podcast. I was driving to Pennsylvania last week for Mrs. Maggid Method. She's starting a yogurt business, and we had to go pick up some kosher yogurt from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And long story. Okay, that's not the point. That's not the story. But I'm listening to this podcast, and in the podcast, the host says that when he was a kid, he wanted to be an actor. And at the time, the biggest actor in the world, a theater actor, was Richard Burton. Richard Burton was the highest paid actor in the theater.
If you do meet Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste.
I think I hear them. Stand home!
He had just signed a $1 million contract in 1962. Now, compare that with the highest paid theater actor in the UK where he came from. At that time he was $50,000, I think, or whatever that translates into in the pounds. And he just signed a contract for $1 million. And so Richard Burton was this podcast host's idol, and he wrote him a letter. He wrote him a 3-page letter asking him all sorts of questions, career advice, life advice, things like that. Richard Burton had a reputation for answering his own fan mail. So he sent back 3 weeks later a 3-page letter answering all of the host's questions. And then at the end of the letter, he wrote the following thing. He said, by the way, here's the deal. You have to decide if you want to be an actor or a star. He said, if you want to be an actor, there's plenty of good acting schools, Meisner, the Method, Stanford, lots of good acting schools where you'll learn the craft really well and you'll progress through the levels. And soon you'll get to the regional theater and you'll get a job there and then you'll progress and then maybe you'll make it even to Broadway. Or do you want to be a star? If you want to be a star, skip all that. Go to the most rinky-dink community out-of-town theater you can find and become the star. Don't accept any role less than the star of the show. And do that until you outgrow that theater. And then go to the next theater and be a star at the next theater. And then, eventually, you see where it ends. And he said, by the way, I never wanted to be an actor. Really interesting story. I don't know exactly what the lesson here is. That there's this concept of being a craftsman where you're good at what you do, but you're relatively unknown. Maybe you're respected amongst your peers. But then you're a star. A star is someone who bypasses, goes to the front of the line. Everyone knows who he is. He was a star in the little community theater, and now he's the star with $1 million contract to play Hamlet.
Thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio.
Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio.
There's a message. There's something there. There's, like Rabbi Shana Gelman, who I quote often, says, sometimes you can feel heat resonating off something.
You find the medrash, you find something and you detect heat. It's like it's warm. You feel the area and it feels there's something coming out of it. And right away you know that this is golden. I don't know what to do with it, but I want to speak about this medrash. I want to talk about this Gemara. I want to talk about this problem.
You don't know exactly what it is, but there's heat there. There's something there that's waiting to erupt. So I don't know exactly what you can do with that, where that message will take you, where that story will take you. I don't know. But I know it's a good story. So it's going in the file. And if you find something that you can do with that, let me know. I'd love to hear it. Daniel@maggidmethod.com. And that wraps up today's episode. I hope that this was somewhat transformative for you, educational at the very least, and interesting is top priority for me. Hope that you found it interesting. Okay, till next time. I'm Daniel Steinberg. Visit maggidmethod.com and download your free Maggid Method template. Take care. Bye-bye.